Hey guys, it's Boki here from Gigi's Fabric Shop, home to Juki and Janome Junkies, and today's video is just a really fun sew-along to do a little rope project on the DX7. So you're going to get to learn about two different things, how to make a fun little project like this and get to know the DX7 a little better. So what you can expect out of this video today is I'm going to be sewing on the Juki DX7. I'm going to be giving you some insight about it, giving you some facts, showing you some settings that can make a little project like this go a lot smoother. I get asked all the time what machine to use for doing little rope projects, and this is going to be a great option. So today we're going to make a really fun and simple project of just this little tiny coaster. We're using some 3/16 inch rope that's just cotton. So it's really fun. You use a zigzag to put it together, and this could be your next fun project to give everybody for the holidays or for their birthdays or just a little pick-me-up happy gift. So we're going to go over how to prep, how to start this. We're going to go over the stitches. I'm going to show you the machine, and I'm actually going to be following along in this book. This book was the inspiration for this project today. It's called the Zigzag Rope Sewing Projects, and there is a magnitude of projects in here. I'm going to link this down in the description below. So let's get started on prepping your rope first. All right, so jumping into the pattern, I'm going to be following along in this awesome book called Zigzag Rope Sewing Projects by Catherine Lyle. You can find this book on JukiJunkies.com. In here, there's a huge variety of projects from like totes to coasters to little baskets, all kinds of really fun stuff. But we're going to tackle a really nice simplified project by just doing these fun little coasters. This is going to be a great way to kind of dive into the idea of sewing with rope. I get asked that quite a lot, and we're going to be doing it on the beautiful Juki DX7. This is a very versatile sewing machine, computerized with tons of stitches, and I always get asked, Boki, what machine should I be using when I want to do jelly roll rugs, I make rope bowls, and then this is always one of my first options for you guys. So as far as setting up the machine and what we're going to need here today, we're going to want to make sure we're working with a 100 by 16 needle, preferably a denim needle so it's nice and strong, so I already have that installed onto my machine. We're going to be working with 100% cotton thread. Here I have some Cairo quilt. It's kind of fun if you do it in two color options. So I have a nice neutral to blend in with my rope, and then I have a blue if I want to add a little contrast. And I'll actually show you in the book some fun options you can do for when you're doing the coaster. So here at the end, you can see there's all kinds of fun ways that you can add more decorative stitching. I think it'd be really cool if you did like variegated threads, like a ombre thread. That would be really, really neat. You can always dye your rope. There is like tons of options. As far as the rope goes, we're gonna wanna make sure that we're using a 3/16 inch rope. This is just a nice basic 3/16 inch, and for one coaster, you're gonna need 2 yards. So however many coasters you wanna make, that's how much rope you're gonna need. Okay, so this is just a 100% cotton solid braided rope, and I have 2 yards of this. Some other things I'm gonna suggest that you guys use, especially to get started, is gonna be some pins, and I'll have all this linked down in the profile or in the comment section down below. A smaller little ruler and a marking tool, and that's really about it. So once you have everything all set up, we're gonna start by rolling up our coil so we can make the first little wrap around, and then we'll set up the machine to get into our little coasters. Okay, so starting off with our rope, we're gonna wanna make sure that the edge is as nice and clean as you can get it. I mean, it's okay if it's a little frayed, but if you can snip it to get those hairs kind of under control, it's definitely a good place to start. So we're gonna start by making that little center coil as you see in the book. So just that little center coil. If anyone has the book, I'm on page 56 right now. We're talking about those coasters, and there's a cute creative tips section that I would highly recommend you read. So we're gonna start by rolling the coil very, very tightly, about 4 times. Really nice and tight, and the reason why we have those pins is to help us kind of keep the coil in place until we're ready to sew it down. So you're just gonna start rolling it like so, kind of like in a little snail shape here, about 4 times, like so, and you're gonna kind of end up with like a Q shape. So to kind of hold this in position, it's nice if you work on a wool mat because you can kind of like pin the layers together. So I kind of pinned them from the sides to hold everything into place. We're gonna make a couple lines here, so you can do this a couple different ways. We can do some straight lines here, we can do there some zigzag, and this is also a fun spot if you wanted to do like a contrast, like in this little creative tip section. Like if you wanted to do the blue here, you certainly could. I'm gonna opt for a more neutral option in the middle and on the outside, and then I think I'm gonna go with something like this on the outside where I'll incorporate the blue. So no right or wrong here, but we definitely do wanna make a couple markings here just to kind of center these front positions. So you can use a water-soluble pen, you can use friction markers. I'm just using a friction pen. This will go away with a little press of an iron. So we're just gonna make our little lines. And you can either do straight stitch here or you can do zigzag, however you prefer. But I'm gonna do the straight stitch option just to kind of anchor all those pieces, just like this. And we're gonna take this over to the sewing machine and just sew right on those lines that we made. So you're gonna make 1, 2, 3, 4 lines. You're gonna make your 4 sections and you're gonna make there to be 8 total sections. So that way you just kind of sew right on top of those lines. So let's go over to the sewing machine and sew those. All right, so a couple reasons why I always usually suggest the DX7 to somebody who wants to tackle projects like this is just how customizable this machine is. The DX series in general, the DX5, DX7, DX2000 are phenomenal for working on projects like this because of all those really customizable settings. So we do have a comparison video on those that we'll link down below so you guys can watch it. But down here in the settings, you'll find that there's something called the pivoting feature. What the pivoting feature allows you to do is when you're doing appliques or curves or stitching, something like that, it's gonna lift up the foot for you, so then that way you can pivot and not really think about it. So I have my pivoting feature on, so that way as I'm doing all these curves, you can imagine I'm gonna be doing a lot of readjusting, all right? And then on top of that, I can adjust how high I want the pivoting function to go. So I can make it go all the way up to 0.6, which I'm gonna put my hand wheel up really quick. All the way up, almost fits my whole finger under the sewing machine. So I'm gonna put it about halfway. I think that's gonna give me enough clearance to, actually one more, maybe like 5. So that way I have a little bit more clearance when I'm working with this, and you can adjust that as you are working. And then the final adjustment that's super nice on this machine is going to be the floating function. So this is right here, it's this indicator right here. And this allows you to control how high you want the foot to be when you're actually sewing. So this 3/16 stitch rope is perfectly fine. I'm not gonna make any adjustments, but if you were working with something a little bit thicker or those jelly roll rugs, you could certainly adjust this to have a larger clearance underneath that foot to get through those layers. So once you have that set, you can do the setting, and to engage it, you'll just be here, and that lets you know that your floating mechanism is on. By turning that off, the foot will go back down to its standard setting. All right, so that's how you would control that. So as you can imagine, those couple settings are gonna be really, really spoiling when you're doing bowls and things like that, and mug rugs or jelly roll rugs and things like that, because, you know, rope is not super dense depending on the rope you're working with. It's just thicker. So it's nice to have those settings to make your experience go nice and smooth. So now we're just gonna go into our regular straight stitch. 2.4 stitch length should be just fine. You can even make it maybe like 2.6, 2.5 here. And we're just gonna follow those lines that we stitched out. Make sure you do a nice little back tack reinforcement stitch as you sew on those lines. So I'm gonna slowly start to take out these pins just to make sure that I'm not sewing over them because the machine is not meant to do that. So we're gonna go ahead and start. We're gonna do a nice little back tack stitch at the beginning. Make sure that's catching. Make sure everything's staying nice and flat. And as I approach the end, I'm gonna do another back tack stitch there, just to lock it in. Cut my thread. Now I'm gonna follow my next line. I'm gonna do this one straight across. I kind of like to do the X shape first. And then do a little back tack stitch there. Cut our thread. And just repeat the process until you've until you've sewn over all your drawn lines. Go ahead and start, do a little back tack stitch there. And that's why some people decide to zigzag this portion too, just because the zigzag is gonna be even more reinforcing. But I think that's definitely a good option when you do like baskets and maybe bigger things. With these little coasters, it's, you know, not too crazy, but as long as you do it with your little 8 sections here and you do all your lines, you should be just fine. So do your little back tack there. Sorry, I'm pressing too many things at one time. The machine's like, do one thing at a time. There we go. And as you can see, the foot is lifting. So you see I'm able to pivot this underneath. So that's what that pivoting feature is doing. The foot is lifting up. So I have clearance to move this. When I put the foot back down, I'm moving the needle. So when this is up, I'm actually able to do that. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut my thread. And then we're gonna go back to the, actually, we don't need to go back to the wool mat. We're just gonna start wrapping this around, but now we're gonna start using the zigzag stitch to actually put all the layers together until we reach the end and then do a cute little loop. But at this point, we're gonna switch over to a zigzag stitch. So we're gonna switch over to stitch number 4, just a nice little solid zigzag. And the book recommends working with like a 4. I found that it's a little bit easier for me to work with like a 4.2, 4.4 wide stitch, okay? And then you can make this a little bit longer if you'd like to, maybe making it like a 1.6 between a 2. I think I'm gonna do a 1.8, but you don't want it to be too big because you want it to be nice and secure. So I think I'm actually gonna keep it at a 1.6 so the stitches are nice and tight. So here's what we're left with, our cute little coil that we have, and then we have this one falling from the right side. So now what we're gonna start doing is put it underneath and we're gonna drop our needle down. And the goal here is to sew on one coil into the next one. One next, one next. That's why we're doing a zigzag stitch, and that's how we're literally just sewing and going around in a circle to catch the 2 stitches. So take your time here, especially when you're first starting. I would definitely encourage you to do a zigzag stitch here, but the goal is to sew on one coil and catch the next. And it's nice to have that pivoting feature on because you can easily adjust as needed. See how I'm easily able to do that? Hands free. So we're just going around, and at any given point you can easily stop and decide to do, you know, a more fun stitch, like a more colorful thread if you wanted to, but we're gonna switch out threads towards the end here. So just keep going around. Making sure you're catching both. I think that's really the hardest part. The machine handles these layers with no problem. It's just really making sure that you're catching both sides. Now I switched to a really nice blue since I'm kind of approaching the end of my coaster. This is the color Blueberry in Cairo Quilt. Cairo Quilt is a 50 weight, 100% cotton thread that's super nice. It's very high quality cotton. It's much more lint-free than some other brands out there. So we're gonna switch because this is all that I have left of my little coaster to go. So I kind of want the outer edge to be that nicer blue. So now we're just gonna keep going. And I'm gonna just make sure I do a little back tack stitch here just to make sure that everything stays in place, and then you're just going to continue. But now you have a fun little pop of color as you go. I'm getting much better at it, you guys. I'm going a little faster. You just really got to pay attention to make sure the needle is hitting both. So as you start approaching the edge here, it's going to be kind of nice if you can like trim them up just a little bit because it's going to make a nice sort of tuck it in. So the way that she has it is like really cute. She kind of like has it tucked in a little bit, and then you just zigzag that all together. So there's like a little peekaboo tab. So I think that's really precious. So I'm going to do that as well. So I would say, I don't know, maybe this is like 2 inches, maybe 2.5 inches, and then I'm going to just bend it in on itself like that, make a little loop. I know my hands are like all up in the frame because I got to keep things nice and tight, but you're just going to hold it like that and then just keep doing what you were doing and catching the 2. And then when you start to get to that little section, I think I'm going to make my stitch just a little bit wider. I'm going to do a reverse stitch just to really make sure that I'm catching everything. There we go. Perfect. The nice thing about this is it's really forgiving, especially when you start doing the back tack stitch, just to make sure everything catches. And I think it's even nicer when you do it a little bit more because it looks a little bit more intentional. So I'm gonna cut my thread. And look how cute! So I'm really glad I switched out to the blue when I did. So there's my little cutie patootie coaster. I kept the white on the back, which I could have easily switched this out, but there's so many fun creative things you can do with this at this point. I'm gonna just iron out these little lines that we drew in the beginning. And this took, what, maybe all of 5 minutes or so? I mean, it was really fast. You can dye this, you can wrap your actual cording, the rope with fabric, which is super, super cute. I'll show you in the little book of inspiration here. So watch as she does a couple different things. So look at this really cute one. She kind of sporadically inserts the little fabric, which is super cute. You just wrap it around and you do that. So this is a fabulous book, you guys. It has so many fun projects. You could do placemats. You can do all kinds of things. Look at this basket that she half dyed. That's so nice. And if you do it with the cotton thread, then the cotton thread will also dye. So it's adorable. So I would really highly recommend this book to get into this fun little hobby. I think I'm hooked now. So I really enjoyed making these coasters. Now I got to make a bunch for everybody. And ta-da! Just like that, we have a fun, super easy coaster without all the talking and word jargon of me filling you in how to do this. You could probably get this done super, super quickly. So I hope you enjoyed today's little tutorial and maybe it encourages you to start a little rope project, step out of your comfort zone. Doesn't matter if you're a quilter or a bag maker. This is a fun way to kind of switch things up in your sewing and make something new and feel really fulfilled because these projects are really fast. And if you want to get really artsy-fartsy, like I mentioned, the book will show you how to kind of make those extra fun things like dyeing it and all that fun stuff. So I'd really love to see you tap into that creativity and make fun little projects like this. Maybe after you do this, then you can make a rope bowl. So it'll be really fun. I hope you enjoyed this really easy and fast tutorial on taking on rope on the Juki DX7. I hope you learned a little bit more about this machine. If you guys have any questions whatsoever, feel free to reach out to me about the machine, about the projects. Comment down below if you like making rope projects, some guidance maybe for the person who wants to dive into this hobby, also what you love about the DX7, or if you just enjoyed the tutorial. I like hearing feedback from you guys. So thank you so much. Make sure you like and subscribe to our channel as we do post every Sunday new content for you so you never want to miss out on the fun stuff. So I'll see you again real soon. Bye.